This is the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Pod. Coach's Corner. I'm Coach James Lewis. That's my buddy, Coach Kevin Coleman. We're here to talk about Team USA. They're in trouble. It's a problem. They're losing exhibition games to Nigeria, to Australia. And maybe the biggest issue to date is Brad Beal, who was a starter and one of the better players on this team, is now out. He is in that health and safety protocols due to COVID. Coach Greg Popovich came out with a statement saying that he's devastated for Bradley Beal and his family because he wanted to be on the Olympic team his entire life. This is one of his all-time goals. The Team USA has a big hole. And we got to talk about who is going to replace Brad Beal. He's a starter on this Team USA. Houston, we have a problem. We got to fix it. So, Coach Kevin, take it away. Who are some guys that you're thinking about that may be a replacement for the star-studded Bradley Beal?
Yeah, I mean, I first want to say I was right and you were wrong because when the team came out, you said, "Oh, that is a gold medal," and I said, "Coach, that I'm worried about that team a little bit." So
full discretion. I proposed a bet with Coach Kevin that the Team USA would go undefeated and win gold, and he declined it. So
I did decline it. It was $100, Coach. I'm a teacher. I ain't got that kind of bread. But I will say, I was worried about them. But, with Beal getting out, I mean, it opens up a void. And there's a couple guys here. I know you had mentioned a couple that could Trey come back? What about Ja? I know Ja tweeted out, you didn't want me before, now don't come asking me now or something like that. But guys get in their feelings. And you know what? It's Team USA. If Team USA comes asking you, I have a hard time seeing Ja not coming. I like Trey, but I think this team needs defense and needs that physicality. And I think I'd be a little bit worried about adding Trey to that mix of the team that they have. Ja would be a perfect fit, I feel like. I think Ja's that dude. If Ja could go in there and kind of step in, be a defensive presence, be that kind of guard, that leader, I would love to see Ja in Olympics.
He's winning. He's a winning player. I think that the snub though kind of affects his opinion on wanting to come back. And I know Dame has gotten snubbed in the past, but this time he was kind of put on the front line. Trey is a hooper. You put him out there, he's gonna produce. Ja Morant probably is more of that winning style for this particular Team USA, especially because their lack of ability to stay in front of players in the guard position and defensive physicality is a big problem. Ja's a little bit stronger as far as that concern. I think the better option when you're looking at a guard would be Marcus Smart, because he brings all of the tools. He's a Team USA player, so he's a little bit more familiar with the team. Jason Tatum, of course, they play together all the time. Also, I think that he'd be willing to come out and play right away. You can go that direction, or if either of these guys pick up, say yes. Paul George has Team USA experience, and we saw how hot he was in the playoffs. I think that he's a perfect fit just because of his wing versatility, his ability to hit the three, and come in and give you buckets anytime. And then Jimmy Butler is everything you want in a basketball player, and he brings that toughness that you really need when it comes to Olympic play. If the physicality steps up big time. So if either of these guys pick up the phone, I think you say yes. What's your opinion on these guys?
Yeah, if they could get these guys. I just think that Jimmy's tired. With what his season that he had last year, this year he kind of fell out. I think that Jimmy would be a perfect fit for this team. Jimmy would be great because he's like, hey, give me that ball where you ain't effing losing. Kind of like Kobe did against Spain a few years ago. R.I.P. Kobe, I miss you. So I feel like Jimmy could be that presence, that leadership team that they really need, that leader. But I don't know. I think Jimmy would be great. Paul, I think he could do it, right? Would Paul want to do it? I think that's the biggest question mark. I'm not the biggest Paul fan in the world, but I think that he would fit pretty well on this team. They need that kind of that wing. And I think they could use the scoring. Those are two guys that I think are interesting to do there. I do have another one for you. Maybe I don't know how you would feel about this one. Just based on maybe time frame and where he's at. What about Tobias Harris? Would you be okay with Tobias Harris, or are you out on Tobias Harris?
I am out on Tobias Harris, but I think that he's a strong possibility to get the spot.
Yeah.
The way he played in the playoffs was not his best basketball. I think he'd be willing to play. He's definitely a good player, but I don't know if he's a winning player. So
Yeah.
I would pass on him. I would actually go with the Olympic hero, the man, the myth, the legend himself, and that is Olympic Carmelo. He was playing in Black Ops yesterday, doing those runs in New York with Brinkley and those boys, and he was cooking. So I know he's ready, and you put him in spot minutes, he can contribute, and I'm actually dead serious about that. He's one of the guys that actually played with a lot of these other guys. He provides perfect leadership, and obviously he's been on the Olympic team 4 times, so that would be a record. And I mean, the man can still produce. Before we look at these lineups of Team USA, look at their strengths. You think about 3-point shooting, wing versatility, and isolation. Some of these players that we were mentioning to replace Bradley Beal provide that already. But our weaknesses are interior size. We have no chemistry, and our guards are getting beat, and they really kind of have a lack of just want to compete on that end. The interior size does scare me. Bam is like 6'8". So we're gonna run into France and they have a giant defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert. Maybe you plug in someone like Miles Turner that has some Team USA experience. Jared Allen that is a tough interior player. Maybe you go with need as opposed to best player on the board. So what do you kind of think about that? Maybe addressing the size, because that was clearly a problem against our first game against Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, the size is always going to be an issue when they came out with the lineups and they talked about who was on the team. And that was one of the things a lot of people said. I think as far as maybe who could fill that role, like, the guys you mentioned is good. We talked about the Rockets recently. Christian Wood could be a guy, maybe 6'10", but he's 214. Like, he's not going to give you size, but at least he gives you some type of physical presence, kind of just a guy out there. I think maybe that would be an interesting move there.
I like that. I forgot to mention that, but I was thinking him too. Christian Wood would be a good plug in for this.
And I think he would fit pretty well with FIBA and kind of that game. Like, I think his game kind of translates a little better than those other guys. But I do want to go back to, like, the strengths and weaknesses we've talked about, like interior size. Chemistry is always going to be big, but these guys kind of learn how to deal with it. Defensively is the key, and I think the other weakness too is, like, people are making a big deal about it, and it is a big deal. I mean, people making jokes about the reffing and how they get reffed in the NBA. They get star calls. Like, that is a legit thing. Like, we laugh about it, but that's it. So they've got to learn how to deal with that. I think they will. I also do think that, like, these games that they've had against the teams that they lost to, how much do they really care about these exhibition games? Like, they're Vegas, they're having fun, they're doing those type of things. Like, these are exhibition games, and we know that these guys turn it on and when the lights are on and the professionalism. So I do think it's that. I don't think the barn is burning, so to speak, like with that. But I do want to point out, like, one of your strengths where it's isolation, that's a great strength to have in the NBA. But how good of a strength is that in overseas basketball and FIBA in the Olympics? Because we see these teams that move the ball, have chemistry, can do those type of things. Like, that is legit. We're going to see a lot more zone in FIBA. We're going to watch that in the Olympics. Can these guys not be isolation of basketball players? I think that's the biggest question mark we have with USA basketball, and that's really what we see between the States and overseas is this different style, and that's the key. How do those pieces fit?
And I agree. And a couple things that you touched on was, isolation is a strength and it's great in the NBA, but when they're playing so physical, those isolation moments you're not hitting at the same percentage because they're letting you get more hands in. And you have Dame, you have Bradley Beal before he was called out, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine. They're all looking at the refs like, come on, guys, give me this call, even KD. And you're just not going to get it. You're just going to have to muscle up and get those buckets like we saw against Spain in the championship when Kobe muscled up and he was getting hammered and still playing through it in that fight. That's why we love a Jimmy Butler on this team if they can add him. But those are glaring weaknesses for sure. You make also a great point on how serious are we taking this. KD has gotten blocked at the rim by Ochoa. He's gotten the ball taken away from him by Thibault against Australia. People are coming for him, and they're not scared. I see him stepping up because I think he's the best player in this tournament. But in that first game to lose to Nigeria for the first time, all time, they were being physical, and we were whining and complaining. And I mean, you see that there are some pros here. It's good for Nigeria going forward. Gabe Vincent, who's in the Miami Heat system, he had 21. He had a great game, and they were the better team down the stretch, and that has to do with some chemistry issues as well. We were not on the same page. Bradley Beal, I think, was like 1 for 10 in that game. Kevin Durant shot terrible. But to come back and to lose the next game against Australia, that's sad because you're looking for a bounce back performance.
Yeah.
What was your takeaways from Australia? Patty Mills dropping 22, Joe Ingles 17.
You know, the Nigeria one probably shocked me more. I think the Australia one, these guys have been playing a long time. Australia has a great brand of basketball. We talked about that with like Josh Giddey, these other guys that are coming out of there.
They're third. They're ranked third in FIBA too. Yeah. So yeah, they are a good team.
And they can play, you know, Baines is there, Thibul's there, Ingles, Patty Mills, like, and that's the thing like about chemistry, like their ability to move the ball, their ability to do the little things in FIBA basketball. Australia is going to do that, and because they've been playing so long together, whereas USA is kind of turnover. I will say, like, Australia game didn't really, I was like, oh, but the Nigeria one, besides, you know, Precious Achiuwa, who I really like, I love that kid. He's on my fantasy team. I think that, like, after that, I mean, what did they have legitimately out there to be able to compete with the team? And they beat us. Like, it wasn't like they got lucky. Like, they matched us. And so I think that was the game that kind of concerned me the most. Maybe we got hit in the mouth a little bit. But I do think we need to have I don't know if you're ready for this talk, but, you know, Greg Popovich, is he overrated?
I'm ready for it. Let's do it. Like, that's what's coming next.
I get a little nervous about Greg, you know, Popovich. I know Popovich, everybody thinks he's a great coach. And I know he's a good coach. He's an asshole though. Like when you look at what he does in like the press conferences and all that kind of stuff, I get it. That's his shtick, whatever. But you know, he has some question marks out there. I mean, I like the coaching staff that he has. You know, you'll see it right there on the, you know, Lloyd Pierce, Steve Kerr, Jay Wright, all those guys. But Popovich needs to do a better job. Like, we need him to step up and do this. And it is a real thing. Those 2 losses matter. I mean, Coach K only lost 1 game, right? Like we talked about, and all the accolades that he's done. Like, Pop needs to do a better job because he needs to realize, I think one other area of it was Coach K was very good in the Olympics because it kind of mirrored college basketball. Like, in a way, like games, systems, movement, all those kind of things. Popovich is the NBA guy, and NBA guys, we know, like, hey, sometimes they struggle with this kind of game. So I want to know what you think about Popovich because I think he's a tad bit overrated.
I think that I think it's a matter of, I think the game is starting to pass him along, and what he was doing for years and years and years isn't working anymore. And he's completely changed his offense. They're running and gunning. They're shooting a lot more threes. I don't know if that necessarily translates into Olympic play. I actually had a hot take on Popovich. I think this is his last dance. I think he finishes out Team USA. He has the most wins all time when you include playoffs and regular season. But he's 25 away from the regular season championship. I think that this is his last year. I think he hangs it up and he sets up Becky Hammon, which I love her as a head coach candidate, but I don't like the job openings. I don't like her in Washington and some of these other positions that are open. I think the Spurs system is perfect for her because she's built chemistry with these players. Yeah. She's helped mold the Keldon Johnsons, and she's won the Summer League championship, or at least been in the Summer League final as that, you know, that head coach. So she has the respect of those players, and I think that would be perfect transition. But I kind of see it like Pop is like, he's moving slow, and I don't know if he's garnishing the full respect of some of these younger players on the team. And that scares me a bit as far as coaching is concerned. So that's actually a great point that you point to. Taking a look a little forward because, hey, we're about 8 days away from these groups starting. The Australia, the second exhibition game has been postponed. Obviously, Brad Beal is out, but Jeremy Grant is also in protocol. Maybe they have to add 2 guys. Because that's very possible that could be the place. There's one more tune-up game against Spain, who's the number 2 team in FIBA. We'll see if that takes place. That's supposed to happen sometime soon, but that's it. Then we got players in the NBA Finals that are giving their all, mopping the floor. That's Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Devin Booker. They're doing all. So they're going to come in a little beat up too. Our Group A, includes Czech Republic, France, and Iran. Does any of these teams scare you at all?
I mean, Iran doesn't scare me. Czech Republic, no. France is always going to be a tough one, like we talked about with they got, with France, you're going to have, Gobert, Nicholas Batum, all those guys, even Evan Fournier is good. Like, they've been playing well together. They've always show up pretty well in the FIBA and the Olympic Games and those type of things. So I think France is going to be our biggest test, but we should get out of we got to get out of the group. We'll get into those other games, but I have some real concerns with us being able to move forward and make it out and win. Like, Argentina probably scares me the most, with Australia, both of those teams. Like, those two teams scare me. And then Spain's always just hanging around, but like that's a legitimate concern for me. Like, hey, you got to make sure you win those games and be in there. But France is a tough test. I think France will tell us what we need to know, coach. Like, if we play well against France and win, I think we'll win gold. But if we struggle against France and maybe we eke it out or lose, then we're going to have some real trouble getting in there.
So I'll start with France because they definitely pose the biggest threat to me. Rudy Gobert is the interior force that we don't want to see. We are small in that position, and he holds down the paint, especially in Olympic play. He really has a way of controlling it. Nicholas Batum had a comeback year. He's playing solid basketball. We know the type of defender he is, and he can play, he basically can play 1 through 5 himself. He was playing 5 just in our last playoff series. We were watching him. He was matching up against Gobert. Nando De Colo can really boogie. He's got some moves. He has got some NBA experience. So they got some guards here. Evan Fournier, we know how he plays, especially on the national team. They look for him to score. Hurdle is just your classic throw. That's probably his last hurrah. He can go a little bit. Timothy LC, I'm not going to try to spell it out there, but he's got some wing versatility. And Frank Ntilikina plays better for his country. They pose a threat because they play both ends as far as who we're going to play. Iran doesn't have an NBA player, and they really are. I think they're 22nd in the FIBA rankings. Czech Republic's going to go all in. Tomas Satoransky for the Bulls, former Washington Wizard. He can really play. He's really on the national team. They give him all the keys. He hit the game winner against Canada to get into this position, but I think that was the hallmark of their national season. I see us walking over them, and then France is actually that first game that we play, and so all eyes will be on that. We're looking at just a little bit forward. We'll talk about this at a later time, but the other groups, Australia poses a big threat here. They had their best player, Ben Simmons, who is working on free throw shooting this offseason and letting his country down. They still have a lineup, and we saw what they did to us in the exhibition. Spain definitely, to me, is the biggest threat at that Group C. I think the world, though, is kind of missing an opportunity. A lot of players aren't playing, whether it's Jokic, whether it's Simmons that we're talking about. Canada has a lot of players in like whether it's Jamal Murray or other players in the farm system that aren't there this time around. So for me, hopefully that means that USA can squeak this out. Right now, they've been playing with some replacement players. Who knows? Keldon Johnson, who plays for the Spurs and under Popovich, maybe he gets the look. He's been playing a lot more than some of these other guys in the exhibitions. Yeah. But we're looking forward to it. It's right around the corner. Basketball doesn't sleep. We got the NBA Finals, the NBA Draft, the Olympics. Right now, it's great to be a basketball fan and just kind of soak all this in. We'd love to hear your take. Do you think they go undefeated? Should Kevin have made the bet that they're gonna lose? We'll talk about all those things and much more going forward. That's all we have.